Robert Whitaker, Anatomy of an Epidemic, Magic Bullets, Psychiatric Drugs, and the Astonishing Rise of Mental Illness in America. Welcome to a world where mental health is a growing concern and psychiatric medications are touted as the solution. In Anatomy of an Epidemic, Robert Whitaker delves into the astounding rise of mental illness in America and how it is tied to the increasing consumption of psychiatric drugs. Take a fascinating journey through the history of psychoactive drugs, from their unintended discovery to their current status as magic bullets. Uncover critical insights into the side effects, efficacy, and rampant overprescription of these medications, as well as the implications of their long-term use. Lastly, explore the close ties between the American Psychiatric Association and pharmaceutical companies, shedding light on a greedy industry thriving at the expense of vulnerable patients.
The accidental rise of psychiatric medications. The American population's consumption of psychiatric medication has skyrocketed, with 1 in 8 individuals partaking, a drastic rise since the 1980s. This surge can be traced back to the post-World War II era, when researchers inadvertently discovered psychoactive compounds affecting the central nervous system. However, unlike conventional drug development, these psychiatric drugs were not designed for specific ailments, resulting in insufficient testing. The case of Thorazine exemplifies this rushed process, which eventually led to its widespread use for various mental health conditions. Historically, American psychiatric medication usage was much lower, but between 1985 and 2008, yearly sales rocketed from modest levels to an astounding $24.2 billion. To understand the roots of this rapid escalation, we must journey back to the 1950s. During this time, medical researchers sought to develop magic bullets to tackle infectious diseases, but instead, quite by chance, they invented psychoactive drugs capable of regulating physical and emotional reactions. The traditional approach to drug development involves identifying the cause of a medical condition and subsequently creating a medication to address its effects. This was the case for insulin therapy, developed after discovering that diabetes resulted from an insulin deficiency. For psychiatric medications, though, this process was woefully inadequate. Take the case of Thorazine, a psychoactive drug produced by Smith, Kline and French. The company tested this medication on a mere 150 psychiatric patients before seeking FDA approval. Despite the lack of extensive testing, the medication was deemed safe for human administration. The rushed nature of this approval fueled the 1954 market launch of Thorazine as a treatment for schizophrenia, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. The tale of Thorazine reveals a broader truth about the largely accidental and potentially hazardous development of psychiatric medications, now heavily consumed by the masses. This emphasizes the need for a more rigorous and purposeful approach to bring safe and effective solutions to the realm of mental health. Unveiling hidden dangers of psychoactive drugs. Limited testing of psychoactive drugs fails to reveal their potentially harmful side effects. Long-term use of psychiatric medications can cause lasting neural changes and an array of symptoms, including memory loss and suicidal thoughts. Antidepressants and antipsychotics have been linked to mania and brain shrinkage, respectively. Furthermore, withdrawing from these medications can lead to chemical imbalances, inducing extreme side effects and making it difficult for patients to quit. One crucial issue with insufficient testing of psychiatric medications is the concealment of potential side effects. These drugs, when used over extended periods, can significantly alter a person's neural functions. In just a few weeks of consumption, the brain starts to weaken, paving the way for side effects to surface. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, are common antidepressants that increase serotonin levels. While serotonin is essential for brain and nerve cell functions, excessive amounts can trigger manic episodes. On the other hand, antipsychotic drugs block dopamine, a neurotransmitter that, when reduced, leads to side effects like tremors and impaired motor function, resembling Parkinson's disease symptoms. Additional side effects range from memory loss and weight gain to suicidal thoughts and feelings of indifference. Often, these symptoms are addressed by introducing more medications, eventually leading to a vicious cycle of increasing prescriptions. It's not uncommon for a person to rely on multiple psychoactive drugs daily, making withdrawal highly challenging. Withdrawing from psychiatric medication produces chemical imbalances in the brain, resulting in severe side effects such as insomnia, apathy, suicidal thoughts, and mania. These symptoms are tough to differentiate from a patient's initial condition, often leading to a relapse into medication. Withdrawal can also cause distressing physical symptoms, including seizures and panic attacks. In the face of rising evidence for adverse side effects such as brain shrinkage, as highlighted by neuroscientist Nancy Andreasen, it becomes crucial to understand and address the intricate relationship between psychoactive drugs, duration of intake, and their potentially harmful consequences. Mental disorders on the rise. The sales of psychiatric drugs have surged recently, indicating a corresponding increase in mental disorder diagnoses. The number of mentally disabled individuals has risen since psychiatric drugs were introduced in 1955, with more people qualifying for federal assistance. The American Psychiatric Association, APA, classifies mental illnesses into 4 categories: anxiety, mood, impulse control, and substance use disorders. A survey by the National Institute of Mental Health revealed that 46% of the population met the criteria for at least one mental illness between 2001 and 2003. Alarmingly, there has been a significant increase in the diagnosis and treatment of mental illnesses in children between 1987 and 2007, with mental illness now being the most common disability in children. 10% of 10-year-old boys take medication for ADHD, and approximately 500,000 children in the U.S. are on antipsychotic drugs. The downside of psychiatric drugs. Psychiatric medications, once believed to be magic bullets, have created more problems than solutions. Overprescription of these drugs, even to patients like children for whom they aren't approved, has become an issue in the mental health community. While they may provide short-term relief, they can harm the brain's chemistry, potentially leading to chronic illnesses. Prominent researchers in the field, such as Jonathan Cole and the World Health Organization, have highlighted that these drugs may not be as life-saving as initially hoped and can even increase the risk of long-term depression. Psychiatric medications were once seen as game-changers, the ultimate solution to treating mental health disorders. However, it's becoming apparent that they have created more issues than they've resolved. One of the main problems is that mental health professionals have been overprescribing these medications, even for patients, particularly children, for whom the drugs were never green-lighted. This practice can lead to severe and lasting side effects. Though these medications can offer temporary relief from specific symptoms, they can also inflict long-term damage to the brain, resulting in chronic health problems. In some instances, treatments for schizophrenia and depression may actually exacerbate symptoms. Prior to medication, people with schizophrenia might have had intermittent episodes with periods of normalcy, but post-treatment, the condition could become lifelong and chronic. It is crucial to note that many people still benefit from the regular use of antidepressants. However, the increasing prevalence of long-term drug therapy has led to a population coping with chronic illness rather than experiencing full recovery. Research increasingly supports the view that psychiatric drugs can be counterproductive. Jonathan Cole, a pioneer in American psychopharmacology, wrote a crucial paper in 1977 entitled, "Is the Cure Worse Than the Disease?" examining the long-term damage inflicted by psychoactive drugs. He noted that at least half of schizophrenic patients could lead productive lives without medication. Cole acknowledged that antipsychotics had not lived up to the magic bullet expectations. Subsequently, a 1998 study by the World Health Organization supported Cole's findings, demonstrating that long-term use of antidepressants correlated with increased, rather than reduced, risk of prolonged depression. Shifting psychiatry landscape. The introduction of psychoactive drugs dramatically changed the mental health field. Previously, psychiatrists were primarily concerned with the psychoanalytic approach which emphasized unconscious conflicts as the root of mental illness. However, with the advent of medication that could alter brain chemistry, their focus shifted towards identifying and treating symptoms. Initially, this development was met with optimism, but the excitement quickly faded as serious side effects materialized in the 1970s, and the anti-psychiatry movement gained traction. Psychiatry subsequently faced competition from psychologists and social workers who treated patients without medication. Internal divisions within the profession arose, with some practitioners rejecting the medical approach entirely, others continuing with psychoanalysis, and some seeing mental illness as a reaction to an increasingly unstable world. Despite the groundbreaking drugs, psychiatrists were still viewed as less scientific and earned less than other medical professionals, leading to the disarray and poor reputation that plagues the field today. Psychiatry's rebranding revolution. In the 1970s, the psychiatric profession underwent a radical transformation, focusing on re-establishing its legitimacy and credibility. A key component of this rebranding was the creation of the third edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-3, led by renowned Professor Robert Spitzer and published in 1980. The DSM-3 expanded the number of diagnoses and provided concise criteria for each, ultimately becoming a universal tool for various professions. This revolution in psychiatry aimed to justify the use of psychiatric medications and emphasize the role of psychopharmacologists in addressing mental illnesses through a chemical imbalance approach, thus paving the way for the pharmaceutical industry's growing influence in mental health care. In the 1970s, the field of psychiatry aimed to re-establish its credibility by distancing itself from the Freudian perspective on mental illness. This ambitious goal led to the American Psychiatric Association, APA, developing the third edition of their Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM. Columbia University's respected psychiatry professor Robert Spitzer was chosen to lead the task force in creating this groundbreaking manual. DSM-3, published in 1980, featured 265 different diagnoses, a substantial increase from the 182 listed in its predecessor. This expansion and comprehensive diagnostic criteria allowed various professionals to consistently identify mental health issues across diverse sectors. DSM-3's detailed diagnoses and numerical thresholds for each disorder provided a structured and consistent method for mental health evaluations. For instance, a mood disorder diagnosis required exhibiting a specific number of symptoms out of the total listed. This approach was instrumental in addressing the complexity of mental health conditions and ensuring accurate and reliable assessments. The underlying purpose of DSM-3, however, was to validate the use of psychiatric medications in treatment. As licensed medical doctors, psychiatrists earned the authority to prescribe such drugs. Some even began to label themselves as psychopharmacologists, in the belief that these medications could cure mental illnesses by normalizing the brain's chemical imbalances. This rebranding proved effective, solidifying the strong ties between psychiatry and the pharmaceutical industry as essential partners in modern mental health care. Pharma's influence and rising costs. It has long been known that doctors' incomes are likely to swell with their capability to prescribe drugs. Between 1950 and 1970, physicians' salaries soared when there was a significant influx of prescription drugs. This phenomenon led to groups such as the American Medical Association receiving millions of dollars by selling advertising space to pharmaceutical companies, often showcasing an overly positive facade of medications. The close relationship between Pharma and the American Psychiatric Association, APA, culminated in corporate-sponsored scientific events. These symposiums were presented as educational, yet served as well-rehearsed plugs for medications, stifling discussion on side effects. The APA enjoyed substantial financial gains through its partnerships with drug companies. Unfortunately, the American public had to bear the brunt of inflated mental health service costs. As of 2008, individuals spent twice as much on mental health services compared to 2001, with this figure projected to increase even further. The burden eventually falls on the taxpayers, including those in perfect health, as government programs cover a majority of these expenses.
Robert Whitaker's Anatomy of an Epidemic shines a revealing light on the vastly complex world of mental health drugs, shaking our faith in their assumed benefits. From the accidental discovery of psychoactive drugs to their haphazard development, testing, and subsequent marketing, this book exposes the sinister motives at play among pharmaceutical giants and governmental organizations alike. The overprescription of psychiatric medications, coupled with their side effects and questionable efficacy, further underscores the need for a more responsible and ethical approach to treating mental illnesses. This book serves as a chilling reminder that when it comes to mental health, sometimes the cures are worse than the diseases.